Welcome to The Explainer. If you're sitting in a boardroom right now, crunching numbers and looking at your margins, or maybe you're a manufacturer mapping out your production lines for the next decade, consider this your high-stakes briefing. Today, we're unpacking a massive, structural shift happening right under our noses in the luxury accessories market. It's totally redefining what consumers actually consider premium, and more importantly, where the real profit pools are flowing. We're talking about the incredible convergence of traditional leather and a natural fiber called Raffia. Now, I want to pose a question directly to you. What if I told you that a simple palm leaf, literally a natural plant fiber from the Raffia palm that costs next to nothing to harvest, is currently the absolute secret to unprecedented luxury profit margins? It's kind of ironic, right? Just think about the raw material cost of a woven plant leaf versus the final retail value of a high-end designer handbag. There is a massive knowledge gap here, and the biggest fashion houses on the planet are actively exploiting it.
8,000%. Yeah, you heard that right. That is the sheer scale of the opportunity and the insane price spectrum we're currently seeing for these Raffia leather hybrid bags. Let's put that into perspective. On one end, you've got a brand like Zara selling a mass market version for around $50. But on the exact opposite end, Valentino is pushing a Raffia jacquard shoulder bag for $4,100. This massive spread just proves that this isn't some tiny, isolated niche. It's a fully democratized luxury trend with room for manufacturers to play at almost every single price tier.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the global Raffia revolution. Then, why luxury chose Raffia. Next up, India's manufacturing advantage. After that, we'll cover government schemes and export edges. And finally, seizing the Raffia opportunity.
All right, let's jump straight into part one. The global Raffia revolution.
Let's demystify these numbers for a second because, honestly, they're staggering. The global leather goods market is sitting at a massive $500 billion valuation right now, and by 2034, it's projected to nearly double to $982 billion. Now, anchor that massive global reality against India's current market footprint of about $13.4 billion. The headroom for growth here is just astronomical. As the global market scales up toward that trillion-dollar mark, the regions that can provide innovative premium accessories are going to capture some seriously outsized portions of that growth.
Moving on to part 2, why luxury chose Raffia.
Let's do a quick walk through this chronology to prove that Raffia is absolutely not a fleeting fad. Back in the 1950s, Raffia was really just for seasonal beach bags. Think Brigitte Bardot and the French Riviera vibes. Then, hit the 1990s, and brands like Loewe started integrating leather handles and trims with these woven raffia bodies, which completely elevated the structure. But the real game changer happened between 2018 and 2020. That was the sustainability inflection point. Consumers suddenly demanded eco-conscious luxury. And now, looking at 2025, Raffia has fully evolved into a post-seasonal luxury staple. Ask any fashion editor. These aren't just summer bags anymore. We're looking at permanent structural demand.
So let's break down exactly why Raffia is the ultimate counterpart to leather. First off, it's fully biodegradable with literally zero synthetic footprint. And unlike stiff straw, Raffia is incredibly pliant. This means artisans can knot it into unique, intricate visual textures that you just can't replicate with leather alone. It also accepts vibrant dyes effortlessly. But, critically for your bottom line, it is wildly cost-effective compared to premium leather, yet it still deeply appeals to those eco-conscious luxury buyers who demand that traceable farm-to-product story.
Which brings us to part 3, India's manufacturing advantage. Listen, if you're an Indian manufacturer tuning into this, you already possess the exact infrastructure needed to completely dominate the space. Take Kolkata and West Bengal, for example. You've got this traditional dominance in leather goods sitting right alongside a deep generational knowledge of jute and natural fiber weaving. I mean, it's perfect synergy. Then contrast that with Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh, India's largest leather cluster. They're soon going to host a brand new Exim Bank-funded leather fashion training center. The whole goal there is bridging the skill gap between traditional artisans and modern leather production.
65%. That number brilliantly illustrates the incredible decade-long growth we've seen in Indian handicrafts exports. We're talking climbing to over 33,000 crore rupees for the 2025 fiscal year. The global market is actively hunting for Indian craftsmanship right now. When you combine that existing proven appetite with the luxury sector's desperate need for Raffia leather hybrids, the export potential is just explosive.
All right, let's get into the financials. Part 4, government schemes and export edges.
Look, transitioning a production line definitely requires capital, but the government has actively de-risked this whole process for you. Here is the playbook. Step 1.
Tap into the Indian Footwear and Leather Development Program, which has $220 million allocated alongside the upcoming PLI scheme to upgrade your infrastructure. Step 2. Utilize resources like that Kanpur training center we mentioned to merge your leather workers with natural fiber weavers. Step 3. You've got to leverage the ROS CTL and ROD TEP schemes. These are massive. They essentially refund embedded taxes, making your pricing wildly competitive internationally. And finally, Step 4. Access state-level incentives like the UP leather policy for direct capital subsidies and export assistance.
And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, Seizing the Raffia Opportunity.
To really visually reinforce this massive financial upside, just take a look at India's handicraft exports. We are sitting at about $3.89 billion right now in 2025. But by 2033, as e-commerce and global access continue to scale up, that number is projected to hit $8.19 billion. The market is literally doubling. So the real question here is, what specific steps are you taking today to make sure that revenue flows directly into your factories?
Well, here are your actionable next steps. First, target OEM and ODM manufacturing specifically for US and European mid-market luxury brands. That $300 to $1,500 price tier is incredibly lucrative and volume-heavy. Second, start using digital B2B platforms like Alibaba and Faire to bypass traditional middlemen entirely and access global boutiques directly. Third, capitalize on Made in India and GI tagging. If you're using regional artisan weaves from Bengal or Assam, get it certified. That provenance lets you charge a serious premium. And finally, use India's stability to navigate tariff volatility. US brands are desperate for a diversified, non-Madagascar supply chain to avoid risk. You can be that solution for them.
Let's wrap things up with this thought. Raffia and leather is not a passing trend. It is the convergence of everything the modern world values: nature, craft, story, and sustainability. For Indian manufacturers specifically, this is truly a once-in-a-generation window to move up the global luxury value chain. The demand is permanent, the government infrastructure is ready, and those high margins are waiting. So, as you map out your production lines for the next decade, ask yourself, are you going to be the one buying the $4,000 bag or the one manufacturing it? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.